Namaste and welcome back to Waking Up with Mindful Serenity Yoga. And I see that I'm still in the light a little bit. Just let me switch here. It's a little hard to switch lately. Excuse the beautiful necklace that I have on. I sort of hurt my neck. Nothing serious at all. I just had a crazy sneeze. I've been having these crazy sneezes since I had this tooth removed. And it kind of just sent me for a loop. And I guess I got a little whiplash from a sneeze, imagine. I first thought it might have even been a fracture because of my osteoporosis. I thought I'm a high risk for compression fractures in the spine and thought it was another one of those in the neck. So I freaked out and went to ER 9 days after it happened. Of course, I didn't freak out that much. It was just a matter of time before I realized that the muscles were tensing up around the injury, causing either more pain. So thus the collar. Long story short. Anyway, you don't need to hear all that nonsense about that little story, Mimi story that I had to share. Regardless, we are going to reach into the jar and pull another question out. If I can find my jar here. Yeah, sorry. And I'm pulling out a question. Let me see what the question says. Some people do atrocious things. How do we not judge them? Some people do atrocious things. How do we not judge them? Let's take a deep breath. First of all, this whole process of humanity is a strange thing. This human experience that we're all living and all a part of. And we're more conjoined at the hip than we realize we are. It's an experience of walking each other home. I love that saying. I don't know where it came from. I can't even remember where I heard it. But I love that expression that we're all here walking each other home. And home, of course, is to that highest direction, that deeper self with a capital S, to God. Everything we do is, in a way, taking us closer to God. I, like every person in this planet, have done atrocious things to others. I have also been the recipient of behaviors that seemed atrocious from others. That is the part of the human experience. Atrocious is a very strong word, and I don't think I could spell it, but it's a word that means nasty, unforgivable, probably. And one of the things I love about this idea of forgiveness is it's not what we think it is. Forgiveness isn't saying, okay, you've done something terrible and atrocious. Now I am going to forgive you so that I feel better about myself. Forgiveness is just a letting go of the experience of the atrocious act that another individual has somehow performed in front of us. Maybe on a collective level, maybe it's against the collection of humanity, or maybe it's against one individual, maybe it's so personal it was against us. But this forgiveness is not a matter of sitting in a seat of self-righteousness and saying, okay, now I know what you've done, it's terrible, but I'm going to forgive you because I'm better than you. Right? It's all, that alleviating guilt and shame and projecting a sense of self-righteousness onto another is not my idea of forgiveness. Forgiveness is letting go of the thing that was done, recognizing that it was a very human thing, whatever it was that was so atrocious, whether it was an offense against society or something so embarrassing and shameful that individual did. Regardless, it is not our position to judge another human being, let alone forgive another human being. So again, forgiveness is all about sitting in a seat of judgment. Is it not saying that I'm here, you're there, you're the one that committed the act, so therefore I will judge it as forgivable or non-forgivable. There's one person in the court system that can actually pass the final jurisdiction or the final judgment, and that is the judge, and they've been elected as such. We as human beings are not meant to be judges, looking at other people's acts and deeming them as atrocious or non-atrocious, saying, okay, this is forgivable, this isn't. Forgiveness is letting go of the whole idea that there is something right or wrong about the behavior of another individual. It's a non-dualistic type of attitude. To me, forgiveness is. It's not about making right. It's not about making wrong. It's not about making guilty. It's not about alleviating the guilt of another individual who performed such an atrocious act. It's all about recognizing that as humans, we're walking each other home. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to do absolutely atrocious things against humanity, possibly, in our level of unconsciousness as we grow. Because home is going inward, past all these layers of resistance we have, past all these samskaras, past all this veil that keeps the higher self from the lower self from recognizing the higher self and living in the higher self. So there's no room for judgment, there's just this allowing and accepting humans to be human. And not that we say the behavior is okay and then you can go ahead and do it all you like. There has to be punitive action sometimes. There has to be social sanctions. There has to be this level of, okay, you are no longer, your atrocious act deemed, it interfered with the safety of other human beings or the well-being of other human beings. So therefore something has to be done. But it is a matter of recognizing that there, by the grace of God go I. We all have that potentiality in us to do some atrocious act, to commit some sin, to be less than perfect, to hurt others. So why would we, spend our time judging and saying, okay, how can I forgive the atrocious act of another? It's just letting go of this idea that we are in the right to judge, letting go of our judgments and our need to judge, and our recognizing who we are at the deepest level. Even that person who committed the atrocious act, within them is the divine, right? Is the highest level of being, is the higher self. They just don't recognize it yet, or else probably they would never have done an act that was considered to be atrocious against another. They don't recognize it yet, but you can recognize it in them and see beyond the behavior. I don't care how atrocious the act was, to the divine being within. And when we can do that in another, we can do that in ourselves, and we're more likely to let go of those things that we have done that were considered atrocious, or maybe not so atrocious, but not great, and start recognizing the divinity in ourselves. We are all divine beings walking ourselves home. In order to walk ourselves home, we have to walk through that night of confusion, that night of not recognizing who we are, that night of, unconsciousness, that night of failure to see why we're here in life, that life is serving its own purpose through us, that we are life. There's so much we have to walk through in order to get home as human beings, in order to remember who we truly are at the deepest level. So yeah, how can we forgive those atrocious crimes that others commit? You really have no choice but to forgive. The ego can judge, and the ego and the mind, the personal mind, can make all these judgments and persecutions. But who you are at the deepest level recognizes the divinity in the other, and just going to keep walking each other home. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. I hope that makes sense. I'm not even sure if I answered the question. But anyway, that's it. 9 minutes. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful day. Namaste.